start. Call our meeting to order. I determine that we have a quorum. We are only missing one commissioner. That would be Commissioner, we're missing two. Oh, yes. There's a vacancy. And then also Mr. Coleman. But we do have a quorum. So if we'll all stand and Sam, mind leading us in the...
I'd be happy. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, if you would review the minutes from our previous meeting, and we actually have two, because we had a continuation from the 19th to the 26th. I will, when you're finished reading the 19th, let me know. I guess, can we do them both at once, or they need to be separate? Because we
Do
never
both at
did-
once, because technically it's one continued meeting.
Okay, so we'll just do one.
I move to approve with the change the date at the top to July 26th on the July 26th meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor say, oh, we have a motion from
And-
Alderman
I'll
Blackwell,
second
and a
that.
second from Mr. Sandlin. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Now, do we have any reports from officers or staff?
I will just remind the public as well as production that immediately following the adjournment of the planning commission meeting, we'll be convening the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, which will also be televised. Also, staff wants to know the planning commissioner's preference on whom wants printed packets. So does everybody want us to print out the packets, or some of you want to rely on your digital copies?
I like printed.
Okay,
Printed.
I'm
Printed.
okay, there we go. Everybody's still printed. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
still.
All right. Anything else? All right, with that, we have no old business to go over, so we're in new business. New business is a subdivision plat. This is a public hearing. This is the Macon Manor Phase 4 subdivision preliminary plat. So I guess first, do we have the developer here to speak? All right.
Good evening. Josh Sudbury. I'm here in support of our small 5-lot development, now named Macon Manor Section 4. You may recall we were previously here in support of Sudbury Estates. A few things have changed since then. Chief among them is that our development has been approved by the Macon Manor Homeowners Association to be adopted into the Homeowners Association as Macon Manor Phase 4. This is quite an undertaking, and we extend our sincere thanks to Patty and Chuck Dean, president of the HOA, for welcoming us into their home to discuss the project, the Macon Manor HOA board for sitting down with us to talk through how we could work together, to Jeremy Bell and Dr. Angela Bell for both drafting the resolution and organizing the signing effort at their home, and to all of the Macon Manor residents who took time to come to the signing and to reach out to us personally, which allowed us to engage in real and meaningful conversations about this project, as well as other future plans for improving this great city that we now call home. We are looking forward to being all of your neighbors. Now, the project still remains the same as previously submitted, with a few changes in the numbering of the lots. There are 5 total lots, roughly 480 feet of new road connecting at Albemarle with an 80-foot cul-de-sac, all of that which is compliant with the city's requirements. And we are still seeking a variance from the sidewalk requirement and approval of a 25-foot entrance into our remaining property. I won't go into depth regarding the sidewalk requirement, as we feel we covered the reasons for that variance at length in the prior meeting. We believe, in short, that we meet all of the 4 variance requirements, and that number one, that not building sidewalks are no threat to the public safety, as demonstrated by the city's own findings in its most recent traffic survey and the experience of the neighbors who have lived in Macon Manor. 2, that the variance is unique to our development and not likely to be repeated. 3, that the lack of sidewalks does not alter any of the city's plans, as neither the city nor Macon Manor have any intent to connect these sidewalks to any existing or future sidewalks through at least 2040. Requiring the construction of the sidewalks would be sidewalks to nowhere, which the Planning Commission should avoid in this narrow circumstance. Now, the second issue is the width of the opening to our property from the end of the cul-de-sac. We're requesting approval of a 25-foot opening, which is sufficient only for driveway access, rather than the 50-foot opening, which is recommended by the city's subcommittee to allow for potential future development. The proposed 50-foot requirement comes from Section 4.4 of the subdivision regulations. I won't read the whole provision, but what is important to note is that the requirement is not absolute. The Planning Commission retains discretion to ignore the connectivity index score if it determines that future development is impractical due to, number 1, topography, number 2, an existing development, and or 3, natural features, okay? These are separate factors, and any one of them by itself is sufficient for the Planning Commission to approve the proposed development without requiring the 50-foot opening. We do not and will not seek future development of the remaining 6.25 acres. That will be our home site, and any future development by a subsequent purchaser would be impractical based on existing developments and natural features. These are the 2 reasons for ignoring the connectivity index score in this development. Now, contrary to the committee's report, there are in fact natural barriers to further construction that make further development of the property impractical, including a pond and a stream that handles excessive runoff of water from the property. There is a map, and I've referenced the map here, but generally I'm not sure if we can pull up the whole city map, the aerial views or whatnot for reference. You can review it on your own time. It's public knowledge. But there's a pond approximately 500 feet to the west of Macon Manor Phase 4. This pond is fed by water runoff from a pond and a general collection in the low-lying areas of the property to the north, where there's also a 1-acre pond. Overflow from our pond winds through a stream on the property heading south before emptying into a large drainage pipe that currently runs under Macon Manor. This pond sits multiple feet below the highest point of our property, and although that grade is not steep, the existence of the body of water itself and the stream would require bridging, piping, and additional infill, which makes development of the property past our home site costly and not feasible. Furthermore, running sewer or water lines from this far western side of the property back to the existing tie-ins at Macon Manor would be costly, requiring pumps or possibly even a pumping station, making further future development costly, impractical, and therefore highly unlikely. Now, regarding existing developments, there are multiple. Currently, there is a barn on our property that is 4,000 square feet of concrete floor, concrete block stalls, and is 3 stories tall on the center. And more importantly, we are soon to have our family home on that property. I need to correct the committee's report in that regard. We have filed a building permit. We did so at the end of July. We've submitted all the necessary information to date, and we've not heard anything further from the city in response to that filing regarding fees or next steps for final approval. But look, I understand these things take time, and we've only got so many people in the city's office. But I just wanted to make sure that you understand we have submitted that and submitted our plans for that permit. The point here is that we are going to be building our home, and it will be in the mouth of the proposed 50-foot opening. It will sit approximately 350 feet from the cul-de-sac and would be directly in the middle of any right-of-way for any road. So if you were going to build a future road, it would require you to tear down our home to do so. The suggested 50-foot opening to allow for future development is itself not in keeping with the purpose of the connectivity index. According to the regulations, the purpose of the index is to require or to provide for adequate traffic flow, both internally and externally, of a subdivision, and for safety in the case of fire, flood, panic, and other emergencies, including a 50-foot stub road for a potential future development that itself would be landlocked by the existing parcels, the developments around it, and the tracks surrounding it, goes against all of these goals. By contrast, our little 5-lot development will make the best use of the land in front of our home in that it will bring in increased property tax revenues for the city that unoccupied land as part of a larger home site simply would not. It will not increase the traffic in Macon Manor in any significant way, nor will it place any additional burden on the fire, rescue, or emergency services provided by the city. Allowing the closed cul-de-sac would ensure no further development that could complicate or overburden the provision of these crucial city services. This commission should ask itself whether, if I were standing here today proposing a development of, say, 10 to 15 lots that encompass the entirety of our property, would this commission be inclined to approve it? I think the clear answer is no, and for good reason. Doing so would cause excessive stress on traffic, infrastructure, and emergency response in a way that our development won't. Furthermore, I can confidently say there's absolutely no appetite for a larger scale subdivision than the one we've proposed to be built in Macon Manor, either from the residents of that neighborhood or the adjoining home sites. This commission, refusing to approve the subdivision as it is presented, gives preference to some hypothetical future developer at the expense of and rather than serving the constituents who live in the neighborhood, understand what the realities are of the current traffic flow, and what is best for the neighborhood both now and in the future. For all these reasons, we urge you to approve the subdivision as proposed. And I'm happy to take any questions before we move on to the next presenter.
I have a question for you. So you've stated, and I totally am hearing this, that there is no plans for future, that you do not anticipate selling this to a future developer in years to come. My question for you is, would you be willing to, if we were to waive the connectivity fee, or connectivity index, not fee, would you be willing to add a miscellaneous record to the, like a deed restriction stating that it is not to be subdivided for X amount of years?
Sure.
Great.
I mean, whatever X is, but
50?
sure. I mean,
50?
I mean,
40?
I'm
Think about
30.
our ages. That's what I was like, I'm like, your
you saw me look up
kids,
to
my
do my math,
kids.
right? I looked at the top. I was going to start using my fingers.
I was thinking when you're like in Parkview and living it up in the condo living, that type of time.
Yeah. I mean, 50, 40, something like that.
40,
I mean,
50?
I just,
Okay.
when I'm, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We would have to nail down an exact date, exact year.
You-
We would
Sure.
need to make it, as part of your condition, you would have to nail down a year.
Let's say, what's 40 years from now? 2061?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
And you'll be ready for Parkview.
I hope I'm not. 2061, I hope I'm running my grandkids around.
We're going to be almost 80 at
That's
that.
right. You're scaring me now.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? All that, thank you.
All right.
Also, just a reminder, we have moved into phase 2 for the city, so if you're within 6 feet of anyone, please wear a mask. Just letting y'all know that as well. So, now we move to open up the public hearing. So if you are to want to speak on this on the public hearing, you state your name and your address, and you have 2 minutes. So I'll open it up for public hearing for anybody that'd like to speak.
My name's Jason Garner.
You can come to the,
Okay. My name's Jason Garner. I live at 426 Albemarle Drive in Macon Manor. I'm the vice president of the Homeowners Association at Macon Manor. Just wanted to come forward and represent the Macon Manor HOA, saying that we have undertaken the process of getting the required signatures notarized on the amendment to bring the Sudbury development into Phase 4 of Macon Manor. We've got that done this past weekend, and we also have an open time slot this week where they can also get those signatures notarized at our lawyer's office. We just wanted to express our views on the two things that we want to express on, which would be the requirement of the sidewalk. Aesthetically, to the Macon Manor homeowners, it's really out of place to have a sidewalk in one cul-de-sac that's just going to dump into Albemarle Drive to nowhere. We feel that's kind of a necessary need, and we really like to keep the flow of what we have in Macon Manor already there. The other would be the 50-foot connectivity roadway. The vast majority of the homeowners would rather prefer to see a more narrow entrance to the Sudbury's property. We think that's just more pleasing and more flows with the subdivision as it currently is. So that's our views as the Homeowners Association for Macon Manor, and we appreciate your input. Thanks.
anybody else like to speak during the public hearing?
Also, Mr. Grimes, if I may, all planning commission members should have received an email letter of support from the Macon Manor Homeowners Association. So I want to verify on the record that that is part of the subdivision record as well.
Did everybody receive that?
Yes.
Looks like everyone on the commission did.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Bowen. I think all of you know me, was here just at the last meeting. You're familiar with my development of Settlers Trace. I don't know what the official term would be, but I'm Josh's coach or
Mentor.
assistant, mentor, whatever you want to call it in it. For whatever weight that carries, I wanted you all to know that he's not just a guy moving in from out of town that's trying to do it. I'm going to be overseeing the entire project, both the development phase and his new home construction. So I will see it all the way through and put my name on that we're going to do everything we can, just as we did at Settlers Trace, that it becomes an asset to the city of Tullahoma. Thank you.
Mr. Brown. Anyone else? All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mary, comments from staff?
Thank you. Can we go to my PowerPoint presentation, please? Here we go. Again, Mary Samaniego for the record, city planner for Tullahoma. Here is a location map that shows the entire property for Macon Manor preliminary plat phase 4. Here is how the proposed subdivision fits into the larger property. Again, the applicants are proposing a 5-lot subdivision with a cul-de-sac that comes off of Albemarle Drive, and then the remaining acreage to the west, which is in blue on your screen, will be retained by them as just a unplatted parcel for their future home site. Again, this is a zoom in of the proposed plat. All the lot size, lot area, street design, right-of-way width, everything meets the code except for one. They're required to put, per the code, sidewalks on one side of all major subdivision roads. Staff provided the analysis if it meets the strict criteria for variance, which staff determined that it did not, in our professional opinion, or my professional opinion rather, it did not meet the criteria. But then there's also a larger discussion about the connectivity index, and I just wanted to take a moment to kind of review what connectivity is and isn't and how it is to be administered. So for connectivity index in this instance, the current configuration has one link and one node. The link is the road and the node is the cul-de-sac. A node is a ending of a road segment. The code requires that all new subdivisions have a connectivity of index of 1.4 or greater, which means you have to have more road connections than you do intersections. So in this instance, per the code, they're required to meet that connectivity index, unless they meet, as the applicant stated, 3 criteria of impracticality due to existing development, existing topography, and existing natural features. So again, this is right now they're at a 1 index as opposed to a 1.4, so they are requesting a waiver. Here's the node. Now, I had discussed with the applicants the option of trying to do the connectivity index where they did a road stub to the west to get them to an index of 3, where they have 3 links and 2 nodes. I'm sorry, 1 node and 3 links. That would give them an index of 3 and they would meet the code. The connectivity index is not something that's specific to Tullahoma. It is a standard zoning tool that I have administered throughout my entire career, and it's something I learned about in school. It's kind of a standard zoning tool. How connectivity indexes are supposed to work, or typically work, is that when there's a large piece of property that adjoins a subdivision, the developer of this subdivision that we're speaking of, in this case would be Macon Manor preliminary plat phase 4, builds the road stub to the edge of the property. And then as the adjoining property develops, that developer connects into, builds a road stub to connect it, i.e. then connecting all the neighborhoods. So that's typically how it works. It has been, it's my understanding, it has been the practice of Tullahoma in the past to not require the subject property developer to actually construct a road, but instead just to dedicate the 50-foot right-of-way, and that when and if the property adjoins it, develops, then that new developer constructs a road, much like we are currently facing now with Mr. Sudbury's. There was a 50-foot strip left in the Macon Manor Phase 2 development, and Mr. Sudbury has to build the road from Albemarle up to his property line in order to use the remainder of the property for his road. So typically, that's not how it's administered, but I understand that's how it's done in the past. So I talked to the applicant about dedicating a 50-foot right-of-way. There was discussion about it. Ultimately, it was their decision to just propose a 25-foot and ask for the waiver. Hold on. Thank you. Okay, so in that instance, staff had recommended denial. However, based on the current commitment on the record of the applicant to record as a miscellaneous record a restricted covenant to prevent future development on the remaining 6-acre piece from a major subdivision, as staff's opinion that that would meet the intent of existing development pattern, because the existing development pattern is no longer a 6-acre piece with one house on it. The existing development pattern is in effect now a deed restricted piece of land, a piece of property that prevents further development for a major subdivision. I want to be very clear that that he still has the right to build his house and any accessory structures that go with a typical single-family house. We're talking about a deed restriction for future development of a major subdivision. So I want to make sure that's clear. So if I no longer work at the city and a year from now, somebody's going to stop his permits. That was not the intent, is to prevent future major subdivisions. Based on that, I will change my recommendation to approval of the subdivision, but I still recommend a denial of the variance request for the sidewalk.
All right.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mary?
This is the preliminary plat, so the deed restriction and everything will come with.
Yes,
with
I would
request of the
recommend
final.
in the motion that you say that the restricted covenant would be required to be recorded at the same time as the final plat.
All right.
And I would recommend that we get, now that I've clarified, and after, when and if planning commission makes a motion to that extent, that we have the applicant come up to the podium and confirm that he understands what he's committing to.
Okay.
You agree? Thank you.
Mary, I have another question. Yeah, this is a preliminary plat.
Yes, sir.
I know we had citizens speak at our last meeting that were impacted by stormwater presently and were concerned about development impact.
Yes.
How will the city look at the final plat and ensure that the stormwater is, post-development, is managed well? How does that work?
After, when and if this preliminary plat is approved, the developer is required to submit construction plans that are reviewed by our city engineer as well as the Public Works Department. They have an on-site construction plan meeting where they review the construction plans with the developer and the engineer. The construction of said detention pond is complete, then it's an after-the-fact inspection is done.
Okay.
And then at that point, the road would have already been installed and all the improvements except for final coat of asphalt and sidewalks would have already been installed. So it's in effect reviewed and then inspected prior to any of the houses being built.
It sounds like it's, all right, sounds good.
Yeah. And then we go to final plat.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for Mary?
I would like, yes. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, I would like to get a clarification on the issue of the sidewalk. I understand that staff is recommending approval regarding this index. What about the sidewalks? Are you still going to be necessary to file for a variance on the sidewalks?
Because they are in a preliminary plat, they are asking for a variance from the sidewalk right now as part of this preliminary plat approval. So yes, I still don't feel professionally that they meet the criteria for a variance for a sidewalk. The criteria, a variance criteria for sidewalk doesn't include what the neighborhood preference is, whether or not it's connecting to an existing sidewalk. While staff understands those perspectives, those aren't anything that I can use in making my determination of whether or not to support a variance. There's no topographic reasons why a sidewalk couldn't be installed. Sidewalks are clearly intended to be developed in subdivisions because it's a code requirement. I can't find any practical difficulty for the installation of the sidewalk.
Okay, as the motion that we have right now for the approval of,
No, we don't have a motion right now.
we're just in discussion phase. But as it's on right now, if it becomes a motion to approve this subdivision as presented, if we vote yes to approve that, it's voting to approve it without the sidewalks.
Yes, because he's presenting it and he did not show the sidewalks.
That's correct.
I would request that you specifically say, I provided it for you on page 9 of your thing, you should have to specifically state in your motion, you have to address whether or not you support, you approve or deny the variance based on the section 413.1. That has to be part of your motion.
I missed that part.
All right.
Okay,
You got another question?
no.
All right.
Actually, yes. Mary, so with the variance for the sidewalk itself, we've talked about how typically topographical
Correct.
land is restricted. Is there anything around it that we can talk about, the fact that the development in that area isn't consistent with the same thing we talked about earlier for the other one, the development's not being inconsistent with the need for a sidewalk in that area?
I'm looking through your criteria now on page 8.
And the reason why I say this is I walk that neighborhood. You all see me in it all the time, like exercising. And there's like, these are the widest streets we possibly have in Tullahoma. I go there because I feel the safest there with my children on bikes and on rollerblades, and they're bad at them. And that's why I go there.
You could certainly use that as a justification, that the presence of that the width of the roadway is sufficient to provide an adequate safety buffer from traffic concerns.
And I'm just trying to make sure we're legally in a good spot.
I'm trying to make sure of that too.
Legally and practically, I think if people are driving and see people on the road, they slow down. If there's people on the sidewalk, they could go they'd go faster. I think
There's literally only one spot in that neighborhood that is at all treacherous. And I wouldn't even call that.
there's a sidewalk there.
Well, no, it's the other part where the hedging is, and there's a blind curve, if you're, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Blackwell, one reason why that I think you could justify a variance is because this is not through traffic either. It's leading up to a cul-de-sac only serving those 5 lots, so it's not at all probable there'll ever be any traffic up there except people just going to and from those homes. So in addition to the width of the existing and proposed roadway, I think you've got plenty of room there for any kind of pedestrian traffic on that.
Especially with the deed
without
restriction
sidewalks.
saying that it won't be further subdivided for
Right.
40 years. Are we ready?
Is everybody, any other questions
I'm
for
afraid
Mary?
we'll lose what I have to say.
All right, if not, we will move. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the plat as presented, assuming, or with the restricted covenant stating that no further major subdivision will occur on that property through 2061, and allowing for a variance for the sidewalks because the roadway as it stands, because it's not a through street, allows for proper pedestrian traffic circulation.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second, Alderman Blackwell
So many
and
words.
Mayor Noes. So, yeah, if you would come up and recognize the restricted covenant that we have put on that for no development past 2061. Is that correct?
2061.
Right, all right. I'm Josh Sudbury, Sound Mind and Body, here today, 37 years old, recognizing the restriction for no major subdivision development on the property through 2061. I recognize and understand the restrictions on that property.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sudbury. Any questions?
There's further, I do have to say further discussion-wise, because I'm really concerned about when I talk to people, I just, for open, whatever it's called, laws, that I did have conversations with the Sudburys as well prior to this, and all this is essentially what we just talked about here. So I just wanted to be very open, sunshine law-y, RUPA.
All right. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Preliminary plat passes with the restrictions and variances. All right, thank you, Mr. Sudbury. We are on to the next one. All right. We are doing a zoning map amendment. This is a public hearing as well. This is zoning map amendment 256 request. It's a request to rezone 510 and 512 South Washington Street from restricted industrial and warehousing district, that's a I-1, to general commercial district C2. So is the applicant here, Miss Brenda Prince?
Over here.
Okay. Is there anything you would like for us to speak about and for us to know?
I'm Brenda Prince. This is my husband Larry. I have owned the property for over 20 years, and I didn't realize until Miss Mary notified me that the property was industrial, was zoned industrial. We had always believed the property was zoned commercial. So I'm requesting that it be changed, please.
Okay. Anything else? No. All right, we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Prince. All right, this is a public hearing, so I will open this up for public comment. If anybody like to speak, okay, would you please state your name and your address, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Mahalia Grace, and I live right next door at 506 South Washington Street. I've only been here about 2 years, and I have no problem with rezoning it to what they're asking for. The only thing I have a problem with is when I bought the place, I wasn't told it was zoned as manufacturing. So I pay property tax along with everybody that lives in my neighborhood, but we can't do anything to our homes like add on to it or anything like that. That's the only problem I have. If I had known it was zoned as manufacturing, I would have never bought the property. So
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what my issue is.
And that, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to speak from this, that we have noticed this has happened in the past, that there has not been a good communication of the zoning as people purchase properties. We are got a plan in place where we are trying to educate the real estate agents that you need to know what the zoning is before someone buys it. And also that we've done this in the past, we can look at rezoning your property back to what it needs to be, even as a group. So if you and several others would like to do a rezoning, we'd be more than happy to see you at the
Yeah, 'cause
planning
there's
office.
empty lots of people that own next to me, and they were told they couldn't build a home there.
So-
But they have to come out and maintain it and pay property tax just like the rest of us.
Yes, ma'am. So, go ahead, Mary, you were going to say something?
No, I was just shaking my head. I will say, Mary Samaniego, city planner for the record. I started working here on November 30th, and I did recognize there are a lot of people that live in Tullahoma that their houses are zoned commercial, or their commercial businesses are zoned residential, so there's a lot of nonconformities that exist, and grandfathers that exist out in the city. So we're currently in the process of updating our comprehensive plan, and in that update for the plan, we're seeing what uses are actually out in the property, on site, in the city. Is it actually a house, or is it an actual industrial use? And then we're gonna adopt a map that reflects that, and then after that, we should be updating the code, the zoning code and the zoning map to reflect
I mean, it's
both the desires of the city, because some areas will be proposed to change over from one use to another. But for the most part, we're going to try to recognize all the existing uses that are out there.
Yeah, our block is really small, so.
Right. Yeah, I've been out there twice for site visits for this case, yeah.
So I don't see how it got
There's
put
no
as,
industrial uses on that block, right?
yeah. So our neighborhood could possibly get together and ask for our homes to be back to residential?
Yes, any property owner can request a rezoning. It's evaluated based on the comprehensive plan and an existing development pattern, so it's never guaranteed. But yes, an individual could come in, or a group, or a neighborhood could come in as well.
Okay.
But I do anticipate within the next couple of years, the city might do publicly initiated rezonings as well, years down the road.
May I ask a question, Mary? Is there a fee to rezone?
Yes, there is a fee. It's $300.
Okay. How many years are you talking about? I mean,
I mean, hopefully sooner than later, but it could be a couple of years
so it'd still be listed as that until,
until that goes through, because I'm the only planner on staff.
okay.
Yeah,
That's how I was,
but you can come in and apply tomorrow for your piece if you wanted to.
okay.
Also, there's a comprehensive plan, public meetings next week at all
Yeah,
the grade
I got
schools.
that.
If you got the
Mary, is
postcard.
that fee within our code?
Yeah. It's part of the city's fee schedule.
Yeah, that can be changed by the alderman, right? Takes 4.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, was there anybody else that would like to speak on this public hearing? All right, if not, I'll go ahead and close. Oh, okay.
My name's Jackie Duncan. I live at 507 South Washington, which is across the street from the property in question, or to be requested to be rezoned. I've lived there for 35 years, and I'm also county commissioner for that district. District 19 is part of that. I'm here pretty much just to try to understand what the zoning change, is it opening the door for something bigger that I don't know, I looked at the zoning list. Do you have any special requests for something? Are you trying to, I don't know, I guess, you don't have any special requests for anything new? I know the last thing that was in there, I think we were both, my neighbor here, she's right across the street from me, we were both in agreement. The last group that was in there wasn't that, it was some party club out of Chattanooga that just, I don't know, it was kind of wild.
We are
Kind
more,
of wild every now and then, you know, but anyway, we want anything that will help the neighborhood get it better. You know, we're no fantastic neighborhood or anything, but I've lived there, like I said, for 35 years, and the house that used to be Vi's Restaurant. If anybody that's been around here all your life, you know that, and as a child, I guess my family's been in Tullahoma for 100 years this year. 100 years. So I've spent all my life here, born in Camp Forest, and I've seen that little neighborhood over there. I've been a part of that neighborhood walking to school for over 70 years. So anyway, but it's been a blessing. And I just I came just a fact finder, I guess, trying to find out if there's any specific thing that's coming in that.
this is only addressing the zoning. We don't know we can't ask what the business is.
Well, that's what I'm
anything.
saying, though, but I looked at the zoning code and as to what could be coming in, maybe, and it said something about a bar or something like that was one of them. But I don't knock anybody for whatever they do or whatever the business aspects, because I was a part of this council at one time. I did serve on this planning committee during my first term as alderman. But I want to do better for Tullahoma. Whatever's good for Tullahoma is good for me, so.
Thank you,
Anyway.
sir.
Hey, Jack, one comment, Jackie. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
they are going from an I-1 to a C2. If it were I-1, there's all kinds of things that could go in there that
I understand.
wouldn't be neighborly.
I saw that.
So, I think it's really an improvement just in that respect.
Okay, well, that's good. I want what's best
Yeah.
for the city as a one-time city leader, and actually doing most of the county work right now, but I just want to, Tullahoma's a good town. I'm blessed to be here. I'm born in Camp Forest. Thank God for that. That was a long time ago, but it's been a blessing, and it's just a great town.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Anyone else? Yes, sir. State your name and address.
My name is Bill Judkins, and I live 1643 South Jackson Street. I'm here to speak to who's moving into the building, and
Yeah,
I can't speak for the history of what it
Wait,
was,
wait,
but what
time
we
out real quick.
Are we legally allowed to hear
I don't
this?
think we're legally allowed to hear this. Part of
I
it.
mean, if
that-
they can say what was there, we want to tell you what the future's going to be.
You can legally hear, I'm sorry, Mary Samaniego for the record.
Okay.
You can legally hear what they intend to do. What you need to clarify is that just because they say they're putting in a specific use, if the property is rezoned, any use that's allowed in the C2 zoning district could be on the property.
Okay.
That's
So
okay.
so the proposed use could go in for a year, and then a year later, it could change to a different, it could be
Okay.
a group home facility or any other of these other uses.
So, as everyone understands, we are about to hear what's about to happen, but there, any one of the C2s
Excite me.
could go in. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Not a problem at all. We do have a year lease signed. We do have a temporary occupancy permit at this time, pending the outcome of this. And we are Celtic's MC Motorcycle Club. We're applying for our 501(c) charitable designation. And basically, we're just guys that, we're part of the black and white community. We, believe in American-made motorcycles. We meet on Fridays. We are a private membership-only club. And it's not open to the public. Friday nights, we have food, and we ride our bikes, and we fellowship and whatnot, and then on Wednesday, we hold a meeting, so it's not like a big bunch of stuff, but the Celtics do fall under the black and white community, which is under the Outlaws, which is a worldwide organization, and they've been around for a lot of years. They date back a long time, and the location and the building and just kind of where it's at, tucked up under the viaduct out of the way, the noise and whatnot, just kind of blends to what we do. So we would have like a long-term interest in occupying that building and possibly purchasing it at whatever time the princess seemed willing to get rid of it. So I think we would fit in the community well. We are charitable. Our drive is to donate our money and any monies we accumulate over the year to a charity within Coffee County, that our money stays in Coffee County. And this year's, I didn't write it down, but it's a toy for abused and neglected children. So 100% of money we raise will stay in Coffee County every time. That's pretty much all I got. If you have any questions.
I think we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, with that, we will close. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion for approval from Alderman Blackpool, sorry. And Paul swears a second. All right. Yeah, oh, I forgot about you. I am so sorry, Mary.
I forgot about
Sure, you talked about it.
I'll make my presentation brief. Mary Samaniego, City Planner. This is a subject property, the zoning map. As you can see for the colors, it's currently zoned light industrial, as well as all the other properties that are on the south side of Washington Street. So when they did the zoning, they just did a huge swath of light industrial up and down between the railroad and South Washington Street. Here is the comprehensive plan map. It is in a industrial land use category. However, it abuts the commercial land use category. And as I've stated before, when you look at rezonings in relationship to the comprehensive plan maps, typically the borders of comprehensive plan designations are loose, which means that properties that abut the border can usually go one way or into one land use category or another. They're usually not rigid boundaries. And when you take that into consideration, the existing development pattern. So you looked at the existing development pattern on the other side of Washington Street and further up Carroll are all commercial uses. So it seemed appropriate to staff, based on the existing development pattern, again, of commercial uses at Carroll, and given that this property is right at the intersection, that the rezoning to the C2 zoning district was appropriate. saying that staff is recommending give a favorable recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen based on the findings of facts of Section 1006E of the City of Tullahoma zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mary. All right, we've already got the motion, so it's on the floor. Do we have any discussion amongst the board? With that, I will call the question. All those in favor of the rezoning, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, we are about to adjourn. Our next meeting will be Monday, September 20th, 2021. So we are adjourning the mini Tullahoma City Planning Commission. All right, now we are going to call to order the City of Tullahoma Board and Zoning Appeals. By that, everybody sees the agenda. We have one item tonight. So if somebody would like to make a motion on our minutes from June 21st.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
So Alderman Blackwell and Mr. Schwer. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Motion passes. All right, we have no unfinished business, so now we have new business. This is a variance 214 to increase the maximum building height from 35 feet to 55 feet at the 100 block of Hoover Lane. So the applicant is Mr. Darrell Welch. So, Mr. Welch.
My name's Darrell Welch with Hart & Realty, 207 Blue Creek Landing here in Tullahoma. For the past few months, I've been working with a group of out-of-town investors that are wanting to relocate a franchise hotel to Tullahoma. As the letter in your packet states, they are wanting to bring a hotel with 88 to 92 beds. They've included a prototype drawing of the hotel in your packets and are asking for a variance to add a fourth floor to it due to the lay of the land and the visibility that it will allow on Jackson Street. We've already reached out to the planning officials, including TUA, the fire department, and the airport manager, John Glass, to get his blessing. These investors still have some due diligence to do. This is just the first step, but with the approval of this variance, this will give another step forward to making this a reality for Tullahoma. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer anything that I can at this point.
All right. Do we have any questions for Mr. Welch? All right. Thank you, Mr. Welch.
Thank you.
All right. This is actually a public hearing, so I am going to open the floor to public hearing. Anybody that would like to speak about this variance in the public hearing? All right. With that, I will close the public hearing. Staff comments. Didn't forget you, Mary.
Thank you, Jim. Mary Samaniego, City Planner, Tullahoma. We'll go to the PowerPoint presentation, please. Here's a location map of the subject property. It doesn't currently have an address, but it's at the 100 block of Hoover, just south of Normandy, and it is currently vacant. As the applicant stated, they are proposing to construct a hotel in excess of the required 35-foot maximum height. The subject property is zoned C2, general commercial, which has a maximum height of 35 feet. The applicant is proposing a variance to allow for 55 feet. Per the zoning code, the maximum height of any building is measured from the highest point of the building to the finished grade of the site. As you can see in this building elevation, as well as the sides, but mostly this one, there are certain architectural features called fly wings that are along the roof that project higher, and that's kind of what encapsulates or encroaches up to 55 feet. If you look at the building itself, the top of the first floor is actually only at about 45 feet, to give you kind of a scale. Staff has reviewed the 5 variance criteria. As you can see, and I think a lot of you are familiar, but I think this exhibit kind of illustrates it. The properties that are along Jackson, but between Normandy, they're kind of double stacked commercial pieces of property, whereas the properties on the south side of Jackson, the lots are deeper, so uses like the mall or the strip malls or the strip commercial developments are actually set further back from Jackson than this subject property is. But because the way that the historic lots were configured, they can have out parcels along Jackson while still develop larger strip malls, in effect, behind them that still have a commercial and marketing presence on Jackson. On this side of Jackson, unfortunately, the way the lots are configured, the commercial lots are one in front of the other. So it's difficult for the commercial lots in the back, as it were, along Normandy, to have a commercial presence on Jackson. So that's the specific conditions or circumstances for variance number 1, giving sighting is one of the criteria that can qualify for variance from height. Variance shall not be granted to allow use that would be not otherwise be allowed. This isn't a use question. C2 allows for hotel as a permitted use. Another variance criteria is circumstances and conditions of strict application would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the property. Staff finds that the increase in heights to increase visibility for travelers is a reasonable request for the use of the property. Again, the applicant stated in some of their backup material that part of the hotel industry is visibility to travelers. They have a Jackson Street address. People from out of town obviously need to find them if they're positioned behind an existing building, i.e. it's part of the criteria that they look at when finding sites. The 4th criteria is that the section minimal adjustments necessary for reasonable use of the land. I reviewed the entire zoning code, and there are several other zoning districts, including ones that allow for townhomes or multifamily uses that allow by right a maximum height of 50 feet. So the applicant is not asking for a height that would be higher than anything that would be allowed within the entire city. So as an example, adjoining this property, somebody could build an apartment complex and go up to 50 feet. So this project would not be out of the context of scale for the city. And then the last one is that the increase in height would not be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. I had this application, variance application reviewed by the Development Advisory Committee. They all had no comment, and specifically the fire department did state for the record that they had adequate apparatuses to serve this tall of a building, as well as John Glass from the Tullahoma Aviation Authority said that this high of a building would not disrupt the flight path of the taxiway runway that's in this area from the airport. So saying that, also, going back to my presentation, I did provide you, this is an example of what the building would look like. Again, as the applicant stated, it's a national franchise that has models. I went through the added process of doing a street view. As you can kind of see, I don't think this has a pointer, but in the far left-hand corner, you can see the Holiday Inn Express. This is from Jackson Street. That's all dues in front of you. That is a 3-story building, so I've photo projected on the proposed building. So this is what you would see from Jackson. You could see just the 4-story, and again, some of those architectural features projecting up above the roof line of Aldi's. So to kind of give you a context of whether you think that it would be appropriate for scale and massing. Saying that, staff recommends approval of the variance based on the findings of fact in your staff report.
Thank you, Mary. Does anybody have a question for Mary?
I do have one question for you, Mary. I think you probably know this question's coming. Is there a way that we can look at McMinnville, Columbia, Franklin, see what their typical height is? Because it seems like we have a very low height requirement for within our district, and to see what other areas are, to consider whether or not we should be increasing that.
Yes, we could certainly look at that if that was the Planning Commission's direction to staff. I guess really I would at this point recommend that since we are in the beginning stages of the comprehensive planning process, we kind of wait for that exercise to be completed to see kind of what is the direction that the city is taking as far as where we're proposing to increase intensity and where we're not, and kind of scale and kind of, to see, kind of get an all-encompassing idea of what the city wants, and then make code changes based on that.
Sounds good.
As an example, in the C1 district, you can go up to 50 feet. The C1 is the downtown district. So I guess we certainly can do it, but I would recommend any kind of overarching code changes to wait until we get the results of the comp plan back, to make sure everything in the end fits together.
Yeah.
Do you have something to say, Mr. Sandlin?
I was thinking it's probably a function of the airfield. I mean, that's going to be a big part of it. But we need to work through that whole plan, for sure.
Mayor Noes.
Just a comment to Alderman Blackwell's comments about height, particularly along Jackson Street. Property values are high, extremely high, limiting because of the land that's there. There's no more land there to build on. So I think going up is the answer to that question. So we don't want our restrictive covenants to be so restrictive that we limit development along there because of height restrictions. So again, going up is the answer, I think, to your point.
Any other questions for Mayor? With that, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve with the variance.
I'll second.
All right, so we have it.
Is that based on the findings of fact?
With the state, with the staff's finding of fact.
All right, that was Alderman Blackwell, and I think Commissioner Sandlin second. All right, any discussion amongst the group?
Just one comment. No one's mentioned the name of the hotel organization. Are we allowed to do that?
No?
No.
Okay, I just want to say
Oh, okay.
I just want to say it's really cool that
Yeah.
they're coming to Tullahoma. It's really cool stuff.
All right. Other than that, no, just, is there any other good discussion amongst the board?
Did you say it?
I squealed when I, no, squealed.
All right, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the variance 214, say aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed? No. All right, motion passes, and we are adjourning the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good day.